I'm baby.
Enjoy this great game.
The average age of retirement for a Major League Baseball player is around 29.5 years old, and most players begin to decline in performance as they enter their 30s and especially mid-30s. The vast majority of players retire long before their 40th birthday. There are a few exceptions, however, although most of them experience a massive drop-off in performance. At 40 years old, Babe Ruth hit just 181 in 72 games for the Boston Braves before calling it a career, although some of that can be attributed to his hard and fast lifestyle finally catching up with him. But many huge stars struggled tremendously in their 40s, and others, like Mickey Mantle, had to retire before getting there. But in today's video, we will look at 15 incredible seasons by a few ageless wonders who put together elite performances despite being at least 40 years old at some point during the season. As long as they turned 40 during or before the season in question, the player is eligible for this list, which will be counting down the top 15 greatest seasons in the modern era by a player at least 40 years old. No player can appear on this list twice, and I'm only including players who turned 40 in the modern era after World War II because there were just too many insanely great seasons by players over 40 in the early days of baseball. Shout out to Cy Young, Ty Cobb, Sam Rice, and many others who still played at an elite level well into their 40s. Steroid-connected players are allowed to be on the list, but they may fall a little bit because their stats are so inflated. For this list, I'm considering both performance and age, so the further into their 40s, the better. Without further ado, let's get into it. Number 15, Nelson Cruz, 2021, age 41. In 2020, Nelson Cruz, at the age of 40, hit 16 homers with a .303 average in 53 games during the COVID-shortened 60-game season. Had that been a 162-game season, who knows what kind of damage he could have done at 40 years old. Luckily, he continued to rake in 2021, when despite turning 41 years old on July 1st, Cruz had an all-star season for the Twins, hitting .294 with 19 home runs in 85 games before getting traded to Tampa Bay shortly after the All-Star game. He hit 13 home runs in 55 games for the Rays, bringing his season total to 32 bombs. He smashed another home run during the ALDS for the Rays, although their bid to return to the World Series fell short after falling to Boston. Still, Cruz had an outstanding season and continued his career, moving on to Washington and then San Diego in 2023 until he was released in July, and as of this recording remains a free agent. Number 14, Bartolo Colon, 2013, age 40. After winning the Cy Young in 2005 and what appeared to be the climax of his career with the Angels, Colon began to struggle with injuries and underperformance. After making as much as $16 million during the 2007 season, Colon signed a $2 million one-year deal with the Oakland A's in 2012. He had a solid year, going 10-9 with a 3.43 ERA, his best performance since the Cy Young season. So the A's re-signed him for 2013, his age 40 season, for $3 million, and Colon had a massive resurgence, going 18-6 with a 2.65 ERA, matching his career high with 3 shutouts and helping to propel the A's to a 96-win season, taking home the AL West Championship. He made his first All-Star team since 2005 and finished 6th in the Cy Young voting. During what appeared to be the end of his career, Colon suddenly became one of the biggest free agent targets and signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Mets. He went on to pitch for 5 more seasons, with his last at age 45 with the Texas Rangers. Number 13, Jamie Moyer, 2003, age 40. One of the great late bloomers in MLB history, Jamie Moyer did not have his first 20-win season until he was 38 years old in 2001. Little did anyone know he was just getting started, and 2 years later, at the age of 40, Moyer made his first All-Star team, throwing a scoreless 10-pitch inning in the Midsummer Classic, and he also had the best season of his career, going 21-7 with a 3.27 ERA. That year, Moyer finished 5th in the Cy Young voting and did it as a 40-year-old with a fastball that barely reached 80 miles per hour. Instead of velocity, he relied on control, location, and a solid mix of pitches, including a sinker, slider, and a deadly curve, keeping hitters off balance and inducing soft contact. His amazing 2003 season guaranteed an opportunity to pitch well into his 40s, and he did so, pitching all the way through his age 49 season. He turned 50 just a few months after his final MLB appearance. Number 12, Daryl Evans, 1987, age 40. As the 1986 season came to an end, the Tigers decided not to extend aging power hitter Daryl Evans, as he was entering into his 40s. However, with no other teams interested, they eventually signed him to a one-year deal, offering just $500,000. Many Tigers fans wondered if he had one big year left in him. The answer became clear during the first half when he crushed 19 home runs with 53 RBIs, and his production never slowed down, finishing the year with 34 bombs and 99 RBIs, receiving some MVP votes. He recorded his best on-base percentage in 13 years with a .379 mark, working 100 walks during the 87 season. He also hit .294 in the ALCS for Detroit with a .455 on-base percentage, although Tigers fans will remember him being picked off third base during Game 4. Still, he played so well in 1987 that the Tigers had to bring him back for 88 when he finally started to slow down. Number 11, Dave Winfield, 1992, age 40. As the illustrious career of Dave Winfield looked like it was finally coming to an end, the Toronto Blue Jays took a chance on him with a one-year, $2 million deal for the 1992 season, where he would join a talented group of exciting players like Joe Carter, John Olerud, Roberto Alomar, and Devon White. Perhaps he could provide some solid leadership while providing at least some production at the plate. Well, he went above and beyond, hitting .290 with a .377 on-base percentage, his best since 1984, and he still had power, crushing 26 home runs and driving in 108 runs. He stayed healthy all year, playing in 156 games and finished 5th in the MVP voting while winning a Silver Slugger. He was inexplicably snubbed from the All-Star game, but his performance that year, along with that of the other amazing players on that 92 Jays roster, propelled them to the first World Series championship in the history of the Toronto Blue Jays. Number 10, Trevor Hoffman, 2009, age 41. In 2009, the 41-year-old future Hall of Famer Trevor Hoffman signed a free agent deal with the Milwaukee Brewers after a relatively tough 2008 when he had a 3.77 ERA and failed to make the All-Star team. Many Brewers fans were less than excited about a 41-year-old coming off a less than stellar season. Then Hoffman began the year on the DL due to a strained oblique muscle suffered in spring training. Fans lost even more confidence, but once he returned to action about a month into the season, he appeared back in his prime, closing out games consistently and with few issues. He finished the 2009 All-Star season with his best ERA since 1998, 1.83, and he successfully saved 37 games for the Brewers. He declined again in his final 2010 season, but 2009 remains one of the strongest seasons ever for a 40-year-old relief pitcher. Number 9, Roger Clemens, 2004, age 42. Up next is the Rocket Roger Clemens, who had multiple elite seasons well into his 40s, and of course that can be attributed to a variety of factors. But steroids notwithstanding, Clemens became the oldest pitcher to win the Cy Young Award with his 2004 performance, which included an 18-4 record, 2.98 ERA, and 218 strikeouts in 214 innings. He made the All-Star team and finished 5th in the MVP voting. In 2005, he may have been even better, although he didn't win the Cy Young. His ERA improved to 1.87. Clemens certainly had some of the best seasons for a player over the age of 40, but he drops a little bit in the ranking due to the extra assistance. And that goes for this next player as well. Number 8, Barry Bonds, 2004, age 40. Another player who had some extra help in putting together these insane video game seasons during his later years would, of course, be Barry Bonds, who had multiple seasons that could be eligible for this list, including his final year at age 43 in 2007, when he led the league with a .480 on-base percentage and crushed 28 home runs. However, for this list, I have to go with the absolutely insane 2004 season when he turned 40 years old. Bonds led the league in multiple categories, including walks, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, and batting average, which was an absolutely ridiculous .362. he broke a single-season MLB record with a 1,422 OPS. He also hit 45 home runs and would have hit many more if the walks didn't limit his at-bats to just 373. This was one of the greatest seasons in MLB history, and the fact that Bonds did it at age 40 is absolutely incredible. Although this occurred during a point in Bonds' career where, of course, he was highly suspected of juicing, which is why I put it only at number 8. Had he accomplished these numbers at age 40 without the extra assistance, this would easily be at number 1. Number 7, David Ortiz, 2016, age 40. In 2016, after a couple of productive but declining seasons, David Ortiz decided he would retire at the end of the year. However, he wanted to have one last great year, and he absolutely succeeded, having his best season in years with a .315 batting average and 38 home runs, more than he had hit in 10 years. He punished pitching that season, leading the league in doubles, RBIs, intentional walks, slugging, and OPS, which stood at over 1,000. Ortiz made his first All-Star team since 2013, took home a Silver Slugger, and finished 6th in the MVP voting. It was such an incredible performance, rumors swirled that he would be back in 2017. But instead, Ortiz retired on top with one of the best seasons for a 40-plus-year-old in the history of the game. Number 6, Satchel Paige, 1952, age 46. Although his numbers in 1952 are not the most impressive of all time, Paige has to make this list for his performance during a year in which he turned 46 years old. Coincidentally, he appeared in exactly 46 games that year for the St. Louis Browns and went 12-10 with an impressive 3.07 ERA. His record would have been much better if not for the lack of run support by a Browns team that lost 90 games. On August 6th, he became the oldest player in MLB history to throw a complete game or shutout with a 1-0 12-inning performance against the Detroit Tigers. He threw 3 complete games, 2 shutouts, but for the most part came out of the bullpen for St. Louis, picking up 10 saves and finishing out a league-leading 35 games. Whatever they needed him for, Paige was ready during what had to be the most impressive season in the history of the game for a 46-year-old. Number 5, Ted Williams, 1960, age 42. One of the greatest players of all time, Ted Williams had an absolutely phenomenal career, especially when you consider he missed 4+ seasons due to military service during World War II and the Korean War. He continued to play into his 40s, but in 1959, the year he turned 41, Williams hit just .254, by far the lowest of his career. He only hit 10 home runs, and it looked like his career might be over. When he announced he would be coming back for the 1960 season, fans thought he was ruining his legacy. Instead, Williams had a resurgence for the ages, bumping his average back to .316 while crushing 29 home runs in just 310 at-bats, as he did have a few injuries throughout the year. He had an on-base percentage of .451 and hit a famous home run in the last at-bat of his major league career in one of the most extraordinary send-offs in MLB history. Number 4, Randy Johnson, 2004, age 41. Randy Johnson turned 40 during the 2003 season, and after winning 4 straight Cy Youngs, he finally had a bit of a down year. He spent the majority of the year on the DL and was a shell of his former self when he did get an opportunity, going 6-8 with a 4.26 ERA. It looked like his career finally might be wrapping up, but the following season, the big unit was back, going 16-14 with a 2.6 ERA and 290 strikeouts. On May 8th, he became the oldest player in MLB history to pitch a perfect game. Johnson barely missed out on 5 Cy Youngs in 6 years when he finished second to Roger Clemens, whose 2004 season has already appeared on this list. So the top 2 finishers for the Cy Young were both at least 40 years old. Johnson went on to pitch 5 more seasons, retiring at age 46 with the Giants in 2009. Number 3, Nolan Ryan, 1989, age 42. Coming in at number 3 is the great Nolan Ryan, who had multiple elite seasons as an older player, leading the league in strikeouts 4 times in his 40s. In 1987, with Houston at age 40, Ryan led the league with a 2.76 ERA and struck out 270 batters. However, his best year after 40 has to be 1989, his first year with the Texas Rangers. At the age of 42, Nolan struck out an astonishing 301 batters, becoming the oldest pitcher to strike out at least 300 batters in a season. He had 6 complete games, 2 shutouts, and finished the year with a 3.2 ERA. Ryan led the league in the least amount of hits allowed per 9 and the most strikeouts per 9. He finished 5th in the Cy Young race. Ryan went on to pitch for 4 more seasons and was the last active player from the 1960s to retire. Number 2, Mariano Rivera, 2013, age 43. After a freak injury in 2012 while chasing a fly ball during batting practice, Mariano Rivera's torn UCL had many speculating that he would never pitch again. He had hinted at the beginning of the season that he might retire, and even if he came back in 2013, he would be 43 years old. Well, that's exactly what happened, and he put together an absolutely dominant final season of his career, saving 44 games for the Yankees with a 2.11 ERA, making his 13th All-Star game and further cementing his place in Cooperstown. He incredibly walked 9 batters all season long and struck out 54, finishing off his career with 652 saves. He won the Comeback Player of the Year award, and that final incredible season was likely a major factor in Rivera becoming the first unanimous Hall of Famer in the history of the game. Number 1, Warren Spahn, 1963, age 42. As Warren Spahn entered into his 40s, he was clearly still elite and had won over 20 games for 5 straight seasons until his age 41 season in 1952, when it looked like finally, maybe he was on the decline. He was still fantastic, going 18-4 with a 3.04 ERA, but it was a clear drop-off. Then the following year in 1963 at age 42, he proved he was still on top. With an absolutely phenomenal season, Spahn went 23-7 with 22 complete games and tied his career high of 7 shutouts. On July 2nd that season, he pitched one of, if not the greatest losses in MLB history by dueling with Juan Marichal for 15 innings at a 0-0 tie until Willie Mays hit a game-winning home run in the bottom of the 16th. The 25-year-old Marichal convinced Giants manager Alvin Dark to leave him in the game simply by saying something like, "That man over there is 42 years old and is still in the game. There's no way I'm coming out." Spahn got MVP votes during his historic 63 season, and it comes in on my list as the greatest ever by a player at least 40 years old. And that does it for today's video of the greatest individual seasons by a player at least 40 years old. Thank you all for checking it out. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know about other amazing seasons by 40-year-old plus players, and a shout out to many other great players who continue to be productive well into their 40s, even if they didn't have one spectacular year that made that list. And this includes, of course, the great Julio Franco, who played until he was nearly 50. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you again for checking out the video, and we will talk to you in the next one.